Hey everyone, welcome to the Raptors Extra weekly podcast. The Raptors 9:05 game is currently on pause on my laptop right beside me because there's big news and we have to record right now before any of it marinates and we can make reasonable responses to it. We have to get talking about this now. Big news out of the TNT broadcast at 7 p.m. on Thursday. Kyle Lowry overtakes Kyrie Irving for a starting spot in the Eastern Conference side of the NBA All-Star Game, which will take place in Toronto. So a Raptor starting in an All-Star game in Toronto. He's deserving of the spot. There was a 98,000 vote turnaround over the last couple of days of voting to help Lowry jump Irving. And it's the second year in a row Lowry's used a final week jump to pass him on. Last year, he passed Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade will start alongside him this year. Lowry getting in also speaks well to DeMar DeRozan's chances because it's one extra guard spot on the bench. John Wall and Jimmy Butler probably earmarked for two, and then DeRozan will have a shot at the wild card, if not the guard spot with Wall on the wild card. But the big news is Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry is starting the All-Star game for the second year in a row. It's well-deserved. William Liu joins me to talk about this and generally have a love-in for Kyle Lowry, who you may remember is over everything all the time. Will, how's it going, man?
It's going great. I'm not going to lie, I was a little bit pessimistic. I thought that Kyrie Irving would maintain his lead, but it turns out, man, if you give away some iPhones, and if Drake puts out an Instagram post, which, by the way, only counted for one vote, yeah, man, look, the fans say this is the right decision, first and foremost. Like, I'm not going to hear anything about, Lowry got voted in because of Canada or because this guy gave away some iPhones. It's not because of that. He completely deserves it. There's even a slight argument to be made that Lowry's been better than Chris Paul this year, which is nuts because Chris Paul is straight up the point guard.
Yeah, he's also carrying that team with Blake Griffin out.
That's true.
Shout out to JJ Redick, down ballot All-Star candidate with the sick new tats.
I mean, I don't think those new tats are very sick, but they look a little bit Darren Panther-y to me. Darren Williams with the Panthers.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you get a full sleeve done overnight and you play a physical sport for your job. I don't know where he fit the time in to get that tattoo to heal recover properly. This is a buddy of mine who, I don't know if we're using it right now, but he provided us with a Rapcast intro before Kill a Con. He's tatted head to foot, and he texted me when he saw Reddick the other night and just perplexed at this quick turnaround. As a guy with tons of tattoos, he thinks something's weird is going on. Maybe they're temporary tattoos. I don't know.
Come on, man. That's too big of a thing to have as a temporary tattoo.
Did he tattoo #NBA vote JJ Redick on him somewhere? Or is that...
I mean, I thought we were going to love Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan, but yeah, shout out to JJ Redick too, who had a 40-point game.
50% on threes this season.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of nuts. It's kind of nuts. He's also Ramona Shelburne's source in the Clippers locker room, which we all found out last summer when he was straight up live texting the DeAndre Jordan saga. But
you know who's been much, much better than JJ Redick, even though JJ Redick's been great? Kyle Lowry.
Kyle Lowry
is the best player on the number 2 team in the Eastern Conference. He is a top 5, if not top 5, then top 10 player by most of the advanced metrics. They all agree he's been elite. His box score statistics are phenomenal. 20.9 points, 5 rebounds, 6.5 assists, 2.3 steals, above average true shooting percentage despite a substantial usage rate. And he's played the 6th most minutes in the NBA. And if you care about such things, he is the heart and the identity of this Toronto Raptors team. Any perceived toughness that they have, any never say die attitude, any we're never out of a game, screw you, I'm just going to barrel to the rim because we need this bucket. That all starts with Lowry. And, over the last 4 years, he's grown into such an important part of the team and the organizational culture they're trying to build. And, for a franchise that has long lacked identity, if you were to try to describe their identity, it starts with a lot of words you would use to describe Kyle Lowry.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, he's really climbing up there in terms of all-time rank for the franchise as well. I mean, the Raptors don't have that impressive or an impressive at all history, really. But, I mean, honestly, the last 2.5 seasons we've seen from Lowry have been, just fantastic at every level. And it's great that he's getting recognized. And it comes at a great time, too, because I tweeted this out right after it happened. But, it's great for Lowry in that, it's great for the Raptors in that if, other players will see this. At least this is my hope. And realize that, look, if you come to Toronto, if you put in a great performance like the way Lowry has, you can go from a guy who was like traded for a mere first round pick.
Steven Adams.
Exactly, Steven Adams, which, great mustache, but I'd much rather have Kyle Lowry. If you come to Toronto, if you sort of put in that work, like, you get recognized, and this is huge, man. Like, obviously, if you're like a Kevin Durant type, you can go anywhere and get this recognition, but I think it speaks and it reflects well on the fan base, really, that someone like Lowry, who kind of came from very, very humble beginnings, in terms of where he started his NBA career, is able to come here, get an opportunity to succeed, take that opportunity, and he gets recognized, and it's great. Come to Toronto, Kevin Durant, please. You'll be an all-star here, we promise.
Well, you just said that Kevin Durant would get that love anywhere. The nice thing, too, is that, I think Lowry understands where he's come from and how much the Raptors have given him a chance to become this type of player. And, there's far more value to the Raptors than necessarily to Lowry, because Lowry maybe would have done this elsewhere, too. But he seems genuinely humbled and appreciative of all the support. He tweeted right out after. He's been asked about it plenty of times. He is, he's a good ambassador for the team and the organization and the city. He's a terrific player. It's the last 4 years have been, they've been a ton of fun when it comes to Lowry. I remember after his second preseason game, I wrote my first thing about Kyle Lowry, just about like how excited I was, because if that was how he was going to play in a preseason game, like, man, what was to come. And since then, he's just kind of continued to hammer that home. He's been awesome for going on 4 years now. And, the Raptors haven't achieved the big picture success that some fans rightfully hope that they do, and maybe they can this year. But Lowry has helped prop up probably the most consistently good Raptors team for like 3 years now. And it was a team that wasn't even really supposed to be that good with Lowry at the core. And he's kind of, by force of will and personality, really been a major part in changing the course of the franchise. And, this is probably the most sustained success they've had.
Straight up, if the Raptors had actually succeeded in tanking, sort of, in that end of 2013, right after they traded Rudy Gay, like, can you imagine how different the franchise would be if Masai caved in and took that offer of, I think it was like Iman Shumpert, Tim Hardaway Jr., and a 2018 first round pick? Like,
yeah, so even if you flip Shumpert for a first after that, like, I think there was a word last year that the Thunder would have surrendered a first for Shumpert.
Yeah, but that's like a 29th
that was the year before. Yeah, so exactly. So you're taking Lowry off of this team, adding Tim Hardaway Jr., who hasn't been very good this year, and then adding a low first-round pick and an extra asset in 2018. Like, the more moves would have happened probably. DeRozan's probably gone by now, but, this team's future wouldn't necessarily look any brighter with a couple of future trade chips in the coffers instead of Lowry.
Yeah, there's no guarantee that if you trade away a player of Kyle Lowry's caliber that you would get prospects or assets that add up to a player that equals Kyle Lowry's or betters Kyle Lowry's value, right? So I think that's like the tempting thing with tanking, and it's crazy because like that was such a huge conversation at the time, and because of Lowry's emergence, like the whole team and the whole course of the franchise basically changed on a dime. It's because of Lowry, and he's agreed to re-sign here in Toronto, which is huge. I think it's it looks obvious that he would re-sign. He loves the city and stuff, but at the time there was a lot of stiff competition. You had guys like the Lakers are always a big suitor. The Rockets were offering him a lot. I think the Heat were also in on him, and he came back. This was on a great extension or a new contract, $12 million a year. Unfortunately, it will come to an end soon, but still, he's remade the course of the franchise, and I'm very happy that he got recognized again. So
yeah, it's great. Sharing the love-in with Kyle Lowry. I tweeted out right before we came on to record. About to record tomorrow's podcast with William Liu. Quickly, favorite Kyle Lowry memory. Let's read the reader responses first, and then we'll touch on ours. A couple people mentioned the crossover to get Landry Fields an open three. Joe Wolfon sent that one in, and then someone else had that too.
Duncan McCD 21.
All right. Well, shout out to that. Shout out to Duncan. He had that as well. That's a pretty good single highlight.
Especially since Landry Fields like straight up could not shoot, and Lowry crossed up a guy so bad. Landry had literally like a full minute to wind that shit up, and he hit it, and it was beautiful. It's a great moment.
Yeah, terrific one. Another one. Against Golden State when he dove to get a rebound and Festus Ezeli fouled him, and he tried to convince the ref that it was in the act of shooting, even though he was laying on his back on the ground.
Yeah, I mean that's Lowry. That's Lowry. Yeah, he's got a little bit of that.
That one
in
comes
him.
from Cam_Oflage, which is a terrific Twitter handle. His name on Twitter also used to be Rude Boy Gobert, which I thought was really good. That's Cam, not Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry's name on Twitter's probably always been Kyle Lowry. Guy DeBort says when he smiles with a couple heart eye emojis, which is
all right, sure, yeah,
is correct.
He's been smiling a lot recently, man. You're seeing a lot of happy Raptor moments.
It's great. A lot of people reference things from the Lowry DeRozan video the other day.
Shout out to Harsh for getting
games.
8K. That you know what? I'm so happy that the biggest winner of Lowry's announcement or getting into the All-Star game is Harsh.
Harsh is off the hook.
Yeah, because if Lowry missed it by less than 8K, it was Harsh's fault.
So we got USC baby from Cam. We got when he taught DeMar math from Gosane. There were a couple more referencing that one. Some people mentioned his weight loss. So Edowin said when photos emerged of skinny Kalo, which if you remember last offseason was a good moment.
Story.
Everyone got real excited and real confused real quick.
Everyone had to decipher who Brian Roberts was because he was kind of just like in the picture. No one knew who he was.
Someone said when he gave up Matty Canuck said when giving up the cheeseburgers, which is a meaner way of saying that. In terms of actual games, a couple people referenced Game 5 against the Nets. From that playoff series. He not only hit a game winner, he had 36 points and 6 dimes, shot 11 of 19 from the field in that one. In terms of like memorable individual game performances, because that came in the playoffs, that's probably tops on the list. Someone mentioned his very first game, which he had 21, 7, and 8 with 5 steals. The Raptors lost. That was a game against Indiana in 2012, but that's as good a debut as you can hope for, really. And then if you're a couple people mentioned this one, and this is the one that stuck out in my mind in terms of an individual game performance. Going toe-to-toe with Steph Curry earlier in the year, dropping 41 with 7 dimes and 4 steals, hitting 6 triples in that December 5th loss to the Warriors. One the Raptors almost took. Steph had 44. Man, Lowry has had a lot of good moments for less than 4 years on a team that hasn't had a lot of playoff success.
Yeah. Definitely. I think that one from earlier this year was one of his most impressive ones. I mean, just from this year, he's had a couple really, really impressive performances. Like, I keep going back to this. It looks super plain when you just look in the box score. I think he had like 27 and 8. But his performance against the Cavaliers, I went back and watched the tape, and I was like trying to clip video of every time I saw Lowry make a sort of value add play. And it was at the end, I put it all together, and there was like in total like basically 20 minutes of just Lowry making smart plays on both offense and defense. I mean, yeah, the guy's pretty amazing. I mean, I had one. I mean, I read the mentions, and then I wanted to go with something more obscure. I remember like earlier to start last season, it was like the first time the Raptors played Boston. He got into like this like mano-a-mano versus Marcus Smart, who like in terms of kind of the way he's built, obviously Marcus Smart is bigger, and the same with the mentality they played with. Marcus Smart reminded me a lot of like young Kyle Lowry when he first came into the league out of Villanova. Was this like bowling ball, like loved to attack the basket, defended like hell, couldn't really shoot that much. And Marcus Smart gave Lowry like a really, really good game, and it was really close down the stretch. And I remember Marcus Smart was trying to initiate offense. The game was tied 107 all. I think it was like 40 seconds left. Lowry picks his pocket, goes all the way down the court, jumps up in transition, and then like tosses it back, just kind of like in hope that someone was going to be there. And DeRozan happened to be the third trailer on that fast break. caught the ball. Lowry screened Kelly Olynyk so that he couldn't contest the shot. DeRozan rises up for a dunk, and the Raptors win that game. I mean, it's
a game-winning assist where he screens Kelly Olynyk is a pretty damn telling Lowry moment. Also, Marcus Smart, terrific defender. Lowry had 35 points in that game and was 12 of 17.
Right, yeah.
Against like a team with maybe the best set of perimeter defenders in the NBA.
Yeah, man.
Well, they definitely do now, probably, but at that time they didn't have Jay Crowder. But anyway, tough 35 points. We'll use that as a transition. The Raptors beat the Celtics on Wednesday.
They did.
It was their 6th win in a row, which puts them 1 win from their longest winning streak since 2002. As far as 6-game winning streaks go, it has not been the most impressive. They've beaten Brooklyn, Washington, Philly, Orlando, Brooklyn again, and Boston. Their defense has been shaky over the last 3 against 3 teams that rank in the bottom half in offense. A couple of, not warning signs, but things they need to iron out, obviously. Keeping in mind the Raptors are without DeMarre Carroll right now. What have you seen from the team in the 6-game stretch? How encouraged are you by their play? And do you see them reaching 7 when they play the Miami Heat on Friday?
Well, I mean, I think 7 is kind of realistic and probably should be expected based on the fact that the Heat are going to be down a couple of pretty big players. Goran Dragic and Hassan Whiteside have been ruled out. I think 5 of their players are questionable, including Wade, Dang, Beno Udrih, I think Tyler Johnson, and Josh McRoberts. So, like, that's like the whole team right there. Realistically, yeah, the Raptors should take that one.
You know what this is going to be then?
Oh, trap game?
The Justice Winslow game.
Okay. Well, I mean,
the defense
can he
has
score,
been there all
though?
the times.
Is the Justice Winslow game going to be like, it's going to be like the Heat win 75-60? Because, like,
yeah. And he literally, like, hog ties DeMar DeRozan and just drags him around the court. Yeah. Because that's probably what it's going to take if they're that shorthanded.
And plus, DeRozan's kind of like, he's had success in the last time they played. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, DeRozan will be fine.
That's a good thing because DeRozan, I mean, his performance just of late, it's crazy. I mean, you throw out that, okay, whatever, that match, the game in London, like, that was super ugly. Not really reflective of, you know, DeRozan's work this season. I mean, it's amazing, man. It's like watching, it's like seeing like 90% like Kobe performances. You know what I mean? Like, it's like having Kobe on your team now. 90%
I don't know if
is
I'd
good.
go that far.
Yeah. I don't mean
DeRozan's
like having
great.
a 5-time champion and whatever, 18-time All-Star now, I guess, and Hall of Famer. I just mean like that style of play. It's like 85% is good, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And there are, you know, DeRozan's deserving of an All-Star bid too, and he's been terrific. Lowry, I think, means a little more to the team, but that's not to denigrate anything DeRozan's done. Okay, back to the win streak. So Miami Friday, that should be a win. Could they extend it to 8 against the Clippers on Sunday?
I don't know. The Clippers are playing really, really well. And they might even have Blake Griffin back for that game. So, it's tough. But then at the same time...
Look around the internet. That might be bad for them. Bringing back a superstar caliber power forward to their team might hurt them.
Yeah, that's a hilariously silly narrative. Yeah, obviously there'll be much more dangerous.
One that was pushed by he who shall not be mentioned, because I promised myself I wouldn't complain about him publicly all year.
There's a couple of those.
Yeah.
No new friends at all.
No new friends.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Clippers will definitely be tough. They're a really good team. They're sort of, I mean, they were really, really thoroughly embarrassed by the Warriors to start the season, both them and the Rockets. And since then, both the Rockets and the Clippers have recovered. But, like, the Clippers have recovered to the point where they're playing at the level which everyone kind of thought they would be playing. But then at the same time, the Raptors have had a lot of success against the Clippers over the last couple of years. Like this current Raptors team, a couple of those, that ridiculous comeback attempt last year when Patrick Patterson and James Johnson really locked down on Blake Griffin, and I think they erased like a 27-point deficit and ended up winning by 20. That performance by Patrick Patterson in that game prompted me to write a long feature about Patrick Patterson, which I kind of now regret, but I don't know.
Yeah, we all have regrets.
We all have regrets.
Speaking of regrets about things that we've Bro, look at these segs. We're on fire, man.
Yeah,
I wrote a thing about Terrence Ross today, which was
boom.
mostly positive about his defense. The last time I wrote something mostly positive about Terrence Ross's defense was this time 2 years ago, and it fell off a cliff for like 24 months after that. So if Ross's steady play of late doesn't turn around, or does turn around and goes back the other way, you know who to blame. Let's talk about Ross a little bit. I know you're up and down on him. We make jokes about it and stuff. He has been pretty good for a while now, and defensively, there are so many mixed signals. I'll link to my piece in the podcast post, but opponents are shooting worse against him on every area of the floor. The team is better with him defensively, just in terms of defensive rating, than when he's off the floor. Seth Partnow at Nylon Calculus is messing around with some matchup impact metrics, which don't control for quality of competition, but by this first run of this metric, Ross grades out as like the number 5 biggest impact on his matchup. Synergy data provided to Raptors Republic this week shows that Ross is in the 77th percentile handling spot-up shooters, which means like closing out on guys and sticking to your man, and then 88th percentile on pick-and-roll ball handlers, which is his second most common possession type. So there are a lot of encouraging signs here. He still gets sleepy off the ball and can, he's not the toughest to lose on a screen because he's maybe not strong enough to fight through them, or his attention kind of wanes when he's off the ball. He doesn't have a lot of isolation reps this season. He's only been isolated 20 times per synergy. All of this is to say it's kind of a mixed bag. The eye test seems to suggest he's playing better defensively. Some of the numbers suggest he's playing defensively. Some of the catch-all metrics disagree that he's having a positive impact. What have you seen from Ross? And then combining what's been obviously better offensive play with this possibly better defensive play, where are you at on your Terrence Ross meter?
Well, I think one of the biggest things with Ross is just I think you've seen it consistently throughout the years, is just that his 2 biggest pluses on defense are the fact that he's really laterally quick and he's like an explosive athlete. So the way he can use that to the best of his advantage is when he's going up guarding smaller players. And like, I don't know why, but these individual performances always stick out to me. Like there was a couple times where he guarded Chris Paul really well. Now Chris Paul generally struggles with bigger players, but I mean, it's still Chris Paul. And I guess another example that really sparked it was in that Boston game, late in the fourth quarter, Avery Bradley had him, crossed him up, kind of got like probably a step and a half by Ross, and Ross was somehow still able to recover, make up the whole distance, and then get a chase down block, which is like really, really hard to do. And I think where he really struggles is if you have to make him go through screens and stuff, he's not as attentive, but I don't know if that necessarily reflects in the data, especially since he's actually done a good job, defending spot ups. Although I'm not sure if synergy data controls for opposition, in which case him playing against bench units might positively influence that. Anyway.
Yeah, so I don't think it does. I think it's just straight up points per possession, which is something I talk about in my article. Ross, Patterson, and surprisingly even Corey Joseph play like really sheltered minutes. Ross is on the floor opposite, on average, I think 2.5 opposing starters, which is like well below the average, 2.56 starters on average. So, most of his minutes are coming against bench heavy groups, which impacts this some. But even if you're helping shut down bench guys,
that's still useful. All the points count.
Yeah. And it's everything with defense is so hard to, Ross has played fewer than 800 minutes. More than half of those have been with Lowry. A good chunk of the ones without Lowry have been alongside Bismack Biyombo. So you get into, you try to look at the entire picture and there's a lot of noise in it. And then slicing a moderate sample into smaller samples, makes things even tougher, which is why a lot of defensive analysis relies on the qualitative. And, because Ross is inconsistent, he's difficult to evaluate in that way. But yeah, I'm choosing to be encouraged.
And I think you should be, honestly. Like, this is just how I was going to follow up with what I said earlier. It's just that now that he's able to consistently sort of play more two guard, which, what does that even really mean? But I just think that he gets easier matchups in terms of guys who he has to defend, they're just generally not as strong as they were last year. I mean, this is like the most like observational sort of thing you can get because there's no data for this. And also the fact that the Raptors defense as a whole has just improved. Like there's a lot less scrambling that goes around, and for a guy who's probably the biggest weakness for Ross on defense is his inattentiveness at times. Not having to scramble around a lot helps tremendously. Yeah, I mean, yeah, well, be encouraged. I think we should be encouraged. I'm hoping that this is the Terrence Ross or the TJ Ross that we can have for the rest of the season.
Well, here's an interesting question then. Say Ross is this TJ Ross. He's averaging 10 points a game, hitting 40% of his threes, and playing average, if a shade above average, defense. Is he, it's tough to tell in the new economy and all that, is he an $11 million player the way he's playing, or $10.5 million player the way he's playing the last 5 or 6 weeks?
Yeah, I think so. Especially since his age is a favorable trade for him. You know, the fact that he's young, you have to pay for a little bit of potential. But in terms of production, I think that in the coming years, like this is pretty standard for $10 million.
Yeah, so Kent Bazemore is gonna sniff that amount of money. It sounds like.
Exactly.
That's not a terrible comparable, I don't think. Bazemore's I love Bazemore. Bazemore kills me, man.
It's great. I love Chance
super high energy. James Herbert wrote a really good piece on him for CBS Sports recently, which if you haven't checked out, you should go check out. But this is a Raptors podcast, not a Hawks podcast, not a Celtics podcast. The Toronto Raptors are second in the Eastern Conference, 27-15, 3 games back of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and now with a 1.5 game cushion on the 3 seed Atlanta Hawks. The East is still really tight. There's a lot of basketball left to be played. Are the Raptors going to lock up the 2 seed?
I would certainly hope so. Either the 2 or the 3 seed, to be honest, because you're going to obviously you want to avoid Cleveland, you know, until as long as you can, basically.
I think more important than that, you want to avoid the 4-5 matchup.
That too, yeah, it's gonna be pretty tough. But I mean, I also think that the East, as much as it's improved this season, and it's sort of, you're seeing distinct tiers come out now. And the Cavaliers obviously on a level by themselves, and then the second tier in the East is probably the Raptors. The Bulls are in that conversation. I guess the Hawks are in there too. Although the Hawks have actually come on really strong, so shout out to the Hawks.
Yeah, the Hawks are great.
And then there's everyone else. You know, I kind of want to put the Pacers up there, but I really don't think the Pacers are good. I was really convinced of it earlier this season, and they came out really hot. But yeah, I think the Raptors are in that second tier, and I think that it's pretty imperative to finish with a good, like, atop that tier, basically. And in terms of can the Raptors hold on, I think the Raptors have more depth, like more suitable depth. Like basically the Raptors can lose anybody on the roster except for Lowry and DeRozan for an extended stretch of time, and maybe even DeRozan for like 2-3 weeks if need be, because we've seen Lowry carry them for a short stretch. Obviously that's not ideal, especially given how DeRozan's playing.
I don't think you could lose DeRozan with Carroll out.
Okay, that's fair.
As important as Lowry is, I mean, that's just so little scoring and so few wings. You're basically committing to 2 point guards, 30 minutes a game, big minutes for Norm Powell, Patterson at the 3, Anthony Bennett at the 3 for some. Mm-hmm. The James Johnson truthers would get their way, though. He'd be playing 40 minutes a night.
I mean, you know, honestly, James Johnson, I think it was you who wrote it. He just, like, introduces chaos. Sometimes that chaos is good.
Yeah.
Sometimes
a lot of times it's good.
Yeah, because look, sometimes the opposing defense just leaves him wide open, as they should, and he hits a 3, or he hits 2 threes, which is...
Or he attacks the closeout and dumps off to Jonas Valanciunas for his first touch in like 4 minutes.
He straight up, I don't think he knew where JV was. I think the plan was not to drive and dish. The plan was to drive, score, and then like, oh crap, I'm on my way down in the jump. I can't score at the rim right now. JV just happens to be here. But yeah, there's a couple of nice passes. I mean, he worked with JV in a pick and roll on one session, and like he led JV with the pass. For the life of me, I have no idea why 2 guards or both defenders in the pick and roll were high up on James Johnson. But hey, man, he passes to Jonas a lot, and I think that Ryan Wolstadt made that reference on Twitter that might be a reason why a lot of people like James Johnson is because he passes to JV, and we'd be remiss to not talk about JV, man. He's up and down a little bit.
Yeah, we're running out of time, but yeah.
Up and down a little bit, but very, very up in the Celtics game, and I just wanted to say that the biggest thing from the Celtics game, aside from the fact he was 9 for 9, is that he played really well against some of the Celtics small ball lineups. Granted, a lot of them were against some of the Celtics bench-ish, small ball lineups, but he rebounded really well in those looks, and he honestly worked the pick and roll really well, and he was just in the right position to find passes, and basically when he was inside, like, no one on the Celtics could really stop him, man.
Also, shout out to your boy Blake Murphy for the well-timed Jonas Valanciunas puff piece right before that game.
Shout out to you, man.
Yeah. Okay, let's wrap it there. 6-game win streak, possibly 7 against the Heat. That would tie the longest mark since 2002. Franchise record is 9. I believe I should double check that. I'm pretty sure it's 9 though. Also from that 2001-2002 season. Now I'm curious about that season. Was that the year they went on the big run when Vince was out?
I'm going to age myself and you in the process and say that was before my time as a Raptors fan.
You tell us in the comments or something. I don't know. I guess I could just look it up after. Will, any parting shots?
Any parting shots? Look, I'm very happy for Kyle Lowry. I hope DeMar DeRozan also gets in because they both deserve it, and it's great. And on a personal level, guys, go listen to Defeated. It's a podcast that I do with some friends. Arun, he's my co-host. And this week we had Joe Wolf on, who was mentioned briefly in the podcast. Shout out to him. He came on to talk about tennis. And
Joe Wolfon's Nadal piece was terrific.
All of Joe Wolfon's pieces are terrific.
Yeah.
All right.
When they take the word count shackles off. Me and Joe Wolfon, man. No word limit soldiers.
Yeah, it was like for sure. And obviously, there's a good reason for those to come off sometimes. And for Joe Wolfon, he's an exceptional writer, an exceptional man. And yeah, so listen to that podcast, and maybe throw Joe a follow. It's at Joe_W, not the letter, but the words.
Not that he ever tweets anything.
He never tweets, man.
Yeah,
he's got more followers than tweets. He's like Kanye over here.
Kanye. Oh boy. Let's shut it down there, man. Thanks for listening. Kyle Lowry over everything. If you like the work that we do at Raptors Republic, enjoy the podcast and things like that, check us out at patreon.com/Raptors Republic. You can just chip in a little bit and, help us keep creating the content we create, doing the podcasts we do. And depending on, your level of contribution, maybe get yourself a shout out on the podcast. Maybe.
Whoa, hold on. Now that you mention it, I'm pretty sure we already have 2 people that should be shouted out.
I was going to wait for next week to do a bigger batch once because I only tweeted out the Patreon link today.
Fair enough. We will the starters Lee Ellis it up in here.
Yeah, I doubt we'll have that many to go.
Shout out to Rubio Balls.
Shout out to the starters too. Happy 10th anniversary. I think we shouted them out last week too, but it passed on Monday. Those guys are the best. Okay, thanks for listening. Patreon.com/Raptors Republic. Kyle Lowry over